Leeming, president of the Canadian Federation for Wildlife Protection, and R.D. Lawrence, a very well-known author and biologist, concerned with Canada's wildlife management policies, have prepared a document designed to enlighten the public and politicians to the fact that, and I quote from this document, wildlife is not being managed for the good of ecological balance, but rather for the production of government revenues. And Bill, I'm going to ask you first to explain what you mean by that, what you think has been going on.
When I speak of government revenues are generated by hunting ungulate species, which are moose, deer, mountain goats, mountain sheep, and a number of other hooved animals. These animals are hunted for money, and they generate tremendous revenues, especially in the BC area of Canada. And unfortunately, it would seem at this time that the Canadian government is more interested in populating or overpopulating our forests and mountain ranges with ungulate species in order to provide hunters with more sport.
Now, R.D., you say that the law of ecology states that in nature everything is connected to everything else, and that when we unnaturally try and reduce the number of animals or certain species, something negative happens.
Well, not just reduce, but also increase for the purposes of sport hunting, etc. Nature looks after itself very well in the absence of human meddling. What we're doing essentially across Canada, and particularly in Ontario, is mismanagement, or as I call it, myth management, M-Y-T-H management. We're managing a minority of species for a minority of people, and letting the rest go hang. And this doesn't just apply to animals, it applies to animal habitat. Logging is another question. Animals need habitat. If you take away the habitat, you're going to lose the animals. So we are still meddling in the same way that we did 100, 150 years ago, when there was an excuse then because there was ignorance. Today we have enlightenment, and yet despite enlightenment, we know what we are doing wrong, but we continue doing it for either political reasons or for financial gains. Today, poaching in Canada for the animal parts situation in Asia is getting really out of hand. Across the board for all our national parks, we've got about 22 special agent type people who are looking after this thing, or trying to, for all of the parks. A black bear gallbladder in Korea sells for $5,000. If you poach a bear and can sell all the parts, including paws, for soup, claws, teeth, the value to the actual poacher is between $1,500 and $2,000. By the time that bear has been distributed, the parts distributed, the value in the open market in Asia will be anywhere up to $25,000. And this is going unrecorded, and it's happening all the time. We're managing the system for 3.8% of a population, of a minority. And we're managing minority numbers of animals, and as I say, letting the rest of it go hang.
That 3.8% you claimed was the population of Ontario that actually uses wildlife for hunting or angling.
For hunting, angling, yes.
And the rest of the population would like to see better policies instituted, but you said, Bill, we're not strong enough, that these people are not getting together and saying, this is what we want to see better control of habitat, we want to see reduced bans here and there. Ideally, what would you like to see happen? What sort of wildlife protection would you like to see in place?
Well, when Ron and I initially, when I contacted Ron, we had discussed the idea of an alliance, of forming an alliance of different groups that could get together and be heard as one voice, which is an extremely important aspect of wildlife conservation. The unfortunate thing these days is that all these groups seem to be divided. They don't seem to be capable of getting together and being united as one voice. And this is what Ron and I are hoping to do with this television show and the report that we're releasing to the media, is that we have to all get together. All conservation groups have to unite and be heard as one voice. And only in that way can we induce or effectively create any change of any magnitude.
An example that you give in the report about mismanagement is the poisoning of something like 17,000 wolves over a 9 or 10 year period.
Between 1951 and 1961 in northern Canada, over 17,000 wolves were poisoned by initiatives that were enacted by the federal government to control the carnivore population of wolves. And it's appalling. It really is. The amount of wolves, and not only wolves but other species, when they were placing the poison in meat, they would drop it from helicopters onto frozen lakes, and many other species would also come and feed on that meat. And at the hands of man, many other species died, not only wolves. And it took them a 10-year period to realize that they were destroying many other species besides wolves.
The irony of that is, too, that with wolf populations, as we discovered in Algonquin Park, when they were taking out 20% of the wolf population in Algonquin Park for years until 1957, they stopped doing it, and to their astonishment, they discovered that the wolves, once they built up to the normal number, made up for the 20%, remained pretty well static. So when you take them out, they replace themselves. When the living is easy, they level off their populations. When the living is tough, they produce more to replace the ones that are lost. And we've known this for a long time.
You have written a letter to the Honorable Bob Rae. Can you tell us the gist of that, R.D.?
The gist of that is very simple, that his minister, Bud Wildman, has made an enormous ecological blunder in opening the park to hunting in all seasons by natives, with also allowing them to use snowmobiles, ATVs, and four-wheel drive vehicles in areas that have never known machines. The stress on those animals is going to be enormous, plus the fact that we have no idea how many animals are going to be taken out. If you combine that with the logging operations that are going in there, you're going to destroy that park, which has been a jewel in the tiara of parks in Ontario. Beyond that, this means if this is countenanced, it means that every provincial park in Ontario is going to be exposed to the same abuse. And this is not a native issue. This is a purely ecological conservation issue. It's got nothing to do, in my case, I'm certainly not opposed. I have sympathy with the natives. I have an Ojibwa godson out in Lake of the Woods. But that's got nothing to do with this issue. What we're concerned with here is conservation of a very beautiful area that is being manhandled to destruction. And it's a shame. It's shocking.
My final question, what can people do who are concerned about wildlife management in Canada, R.D.?
Write to the ministers, write. For every letter that a minister of something, whether it's in Ottawa or British Columbia or Ontario, receives, they consider that 200 people feel the same way.
Right. And they can also find out more about your organization, the Canadian Federation for Wildlife Protection in Midland, maybe become a member and make their voice known. Bill, R.D., thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've been talking with Bill Leeming and R.D. Lawrence about wildlife management policies in Canada.